So 6 months after I published a video called "Why did Manchester never get an underground?" and splashed the word "pointless?" across the thumbnail, Manchester decided it would go out and get itself an underground. Now, I'm not saying I'm entirely and singularly responsible for bringing an underground into Manchester, but the timing is suspicious to say the least. Now, be that as it may, in July 2025, GM Mayor Andy Burnham announced that the city region's 10-year strategy included a big expansion of the transport network, including expansion of the tram system, and to get the ball rolling on an integrated underground. He also said that this was essential to the prosperity of the region, given of course that Manchester is the fastest growing city region anywhere in the country, and that transport is vital to that. So since we already looked at past schemes to get an underground into Manchester, see aforementioned video, how about we just take a deep breath, dive straight in and see what these initial plans look like exactly on the drawing board at the moment. It's time to look again at Manchester's missing underground. Cue the music.
I got 7 Mac 11s, about 8 38s, 9 9s, 10 Mac 10s. The shits never end. You can't touch my riches, even if you had MC Hammer and them 357.
Greater Manchester currently has an integrated transport system called the B Network, incorporating trams, buses and a cycle hire scheme on the barrel bikes. By 2028, many local commuter rail lines will also be brought under the umbrella of the B Network, making it easier than ever to get public transport. And as progressive as this is compared to what we had just a decade ago, the existing transport network is beginning to feel the strain as the number of people using public transport grows year on year. It's important then to keep coming back to what I called in my last video, Manchester's obsession with having something underground. And just an important side note, it's not under strain because the population is growing. It's only grown actually by a measly 200,000 people since the 1960s. It's actually because there's a conscious effort to get people out of cars to cut pollution and increase health. And the number of people living in the city centre has boomed in recent years, and hardly any of them are car owners, so public transport becomes more and more important.
And bigger point to make, when we talk about an underground in Manchester, we're not talking about a completely isolated network of commuter lines like you find in London and other big cities around the world. Often what people mean when they refer to an underground for Manchester, they're talking about a way of bringing the existing railway and tram infrastructure around the mess in the city centre on the surface. Now, as populated and sometimes isolated as the satellite towns can be from Manchester, bringing a completely isolated underground system to Greater Manchester is virtually never going to happen. Just never going to happen.
So for me, there are 3 main problems with Manchester's tram and rail networks that need solving ASAP. First, a big problem with a fabulous Metrolink system is that it all goes through the city centre where it gets congested. You can't increase capacity on the Metrolink without bringing the city centre into tram gridlock. So even though in an ideal world the tram network would grow and serve more people and reach more places, it'd be constrained by a bottleneck of its own making. Second, Manchester's railways are also congested on this section around the south of the city. Because there is never a line built over here, all modern day trains have to pass through the city along this viaduct, which, by the way, only carries 2 lines. Passage through the city is slow and these commuter stations are always very busy. And only 2 platforms at Piccadilly over here actually serve this incredibly busy route. The infamous platforms 13 and 14. And thirdly, we just have a slow, old-fashioned railway service in general. Overcapacity in the region is enough to put commuters off travelling by train. Manchester should have been connected to its neighbouring cities of Liverpool, Leeds and Sheffield via high-speed rail by now, easing capacity on the commuter network across the north. So considering Manchester has a good tram network that needs improvements and expansion, and a really outdated railway infrastructure that needs tackling, what would an underground for Manchester actually look like? On the surface, there'll be new rail stations, expanded tram lines, such as that to Stockport beginning in 2030. But when it comes to the underground, it's all a little murky still. So the Mayor and Transport for Greater Manchester are actually talking about 3 lines at the moment, all crossing the city in different directions, with Manchester Piccadilly at the heart. The first mentioned is a line running from Media City at Salford Quays down here in the southwest, across the city centre to Atom City up here in the northeast. So letting the metro run underground from Cornbrook to Victoria via 2 media and tech hubs actually helps tackle the first problem I mentioned before with tram congestion in the city centre. Next mentioned was a vague northwest to southeast line also passing through Piccadilly and presumably linking the main line here at Ardwick with Salford up here, therefore easing congestion on the only 2 Piccadilly platforms, 13 and 14, heading this way. And a third line would run north to south, connecting Collyhurst to the airport. And I know that sounds initially quite daft, but like Atom City, this area is another one of them redevelopment regions, Northern Gateway. Connecting this to the airport down the Oxford Road, Wilmslow Road corridor would allow it to incorporate the city centre, the universities, the Royal Infirmary, and because this doesn't incorporate any existing tram or train lines, it could potentially be a completely separate, segregated underground line, rapid and independent. And finally, let's not forget there are also plans for a brand new Liverpool to Manchester railway running via Warrington and Manchester Airport that would require an underground station at Piccadilly. Now at the moment the details of this are unknown, so we don't know how much of it will be using new as opposed to existing infrastructure. But if done properly, it has the potential to create a direct connection between 4 of the region's major focal points and lay the foundation for what could become something more exciting towards Leeds, Sheffield and maybe even York.
Now, I'm not stupid. I played City Simulator computer games, so I'm just as much as an expert in transport planning as these experts in transport planning. And I know that when you put any sort of mass transport down, you shouldn't focus on whether it's commercially viable. When you put a new road down, you don't ask whether it's going to make a profit. We just ask whether it's necessary, whether it's needed. Transport of any kind should just focus on the moving of people from one place to another, easing congestion and letting the city breathe. Declogging traffic hotspots can have such a massive positive effect on a local economy, as well as making the city more livable. So the transport itself might run at a loss, but the economy is benefiting. And now this is a point I'm really quite proud of. When you design a transport system, you've got to design it bigger than you need. Not for the demand now, but the demand you want in the future. It's like when you buy your kids new clothes. You don't buy them clothes that fit, you buy them baggy clothes, clothes that make them embarrassed to be around their friends, because they will grow into it. And you're not wasting your money.
Now there's still a danger in all of this, of designing a transport system that revolves around the city centre and sucks the life away from the satellite towns. Travel between any 2 of these towns at the moment is left only for the buses, so while we're in sandbox mode planning what we'd like to see, why don't we throw in that orbital tram route I mentioned in a video a few years ago, before I was old and jaded. Now we've got a commuter network covering the whole of GM, albeit a slow moving light rail one rather than a faster subway. And with the 3 underground tunnels, you've got system flow and less congestion. And of course, on top of that, a wide-reaching bus service. And at some points, I probably should mention Liverpool, where the commuter rail network of partially above ground, partially below ground lines serves pretty much the whole of Merseyside and the most populated bits of the Wirral. There since the 1970s, it's a great model for Manchester to follow, connecting the nearby towns to the city centre. It's not perfect, it's still a spider after all, but it's a good baseline for a commuter rail network that serves the needs of the people. Anyway, a new high-speed rail line to Liverpool and across the Pennines would bring the region into a place it probably should have been about 40 years ago, tackling motorway congestion and boosting the economies of this urban belt.
So, expand the Metrolink, build the tunnels across the city, build HS2 as previously promised by previous governments, and oh yeah, fourth one, make the city centre better for cycling. People often forget that the proper adoption of cycling in a city centre can improve the movement, access, pollution and congestion on other forms of transport as well. So when I go into the city centre today, I cycle, but I know that it's incredibly hard, and if I have to cross from one side to the other, anywhere around St Peter's Square or Piccadilly Gardens, I know I'm probably better off just locking my bike up, hoping nobody nicks it, and then cramming myself onto an overcrowded tram or just walking. Holistic thinking. Now, is all this going to happen? Well, yes, it will. It definitely will, because it has to. Because you can't have Manchester continuing to grow without this happening. You can't have a busy city centre all clogged up with slow-moving trams, buses and pedestrians all getting in each other's way. You can't have out-of-town economic tech zones and regeneration projects only accessible by car. And you can't have anybody wanting to pass around the city, either by road or by rail, sitting in loads and loads of traffic or going miles and miles out of their way.
So on the whole, I personally really like all of this chat about expanded public transport, as long as we don't assume that economic growth is perpetual and always a good thing. History has shown us again and again that economic growth can actually exacerbate inequality, have diminishing returns for human well-being, and can have devastating environmental costs. So this is all well and good, but only if we reorientate what we think of as economic growth to be about well-being and sustainability.
So there you go. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do let me know what you think about all this in the comments, by the way. I love reading your comments, especially about stuff like this, which is all hypothetical still technically, but still incredibly interesting. And so it's open to a wide range of opinions. And you guys have some of the most detailed comments out there, and I love reading them and learning so much from them. So yeah, thank you so much. So that's sorted. Who wants to talk about the clean air zone?
All aboard the toxic gossip train. You're chugging down the tracks of misinformation. The toxic gossip train. You got a one-way ticket to manipulation station. Toxic gossip train. Tie me to the tracks and harass me for my past. 'Cause rumors look like facts. If you don't mind the gaps, I won't survive.